Scotland is shite. Or rather, it's in a shite way. A very shite way. And it's only going to get shite-er. Aye, alright, that's probably enough shites for a full video and we're only 10 seconds in. But still, the point stands. The question is why? So another referendum on Scottish independence is on the cards, apparently. And the country is gearing up to be drenched in the ejaculate of saltire jizz while simultaneously getting the windpipes of the entire nation asphyxiated by Union Jack Bunting.
I said, turn off my gas cannons.
Joy. Don't get me wrong, I support the right of the people of Scotland to choose the government they want and not get lumped with whatever government England wants. It's simple maths, really. But the forthcoming campaign for Scottish freedom! It doesn't fill me with anything but despair and general hopelessness. In order to explain why, we have to go back to go forwards, and then explain the players, and then look to the shite future. I think I'll probably split this into 3 videos. Part 1, the foundations of Scotland's political shitemare. Part 2, the tribes of Scotland's political shitemare. And Part 3, Scotland's never-ending shitemare. Bear with me. Here we go. So let's go back to the slightly olden days before devolution, when Scotland didn't have a parliament and was little more than a tartan backward at the arse end of Britain. I'm of course talking about the 80s and 90s. We were a grey and miserable people in a grey and miserable place, full of drugs, booze, fried food, hatred and bullshit. Okay, admittedly, not that much has changed. Except maybe our culture isn't quite as grey as it used to be. And no, I'm not talking about the orange culture. That's a Pandora's box full of primordial STDs I'm simply not willing to open at this particular moment in time.
I think I might have picked up a little something I shouldn't have.
No surrender! But along comes devolution in 1999, gifted to us by the tartan war criminal himself, Tony Blair. This was an altruistic gift. No ulterior motives. No siree. Scottish Labour gifted you your pretended parliament. Now vote Scottish Labour for eternity. Obviously it didn't quite work out that way for Tony Blair and the new Blairites, but still, while they gifted us our own parliament back, still kind by the way, still kind, they managed to steal 6,000 square miles of Scottish waters and make them English when Tony Blair shifted the maritime border. I can't possibly think why they'd do that. Pure altruism. The British establishment, great bunch of lads. So now Scotland had a parliament and suddenly it has to change how it sees itself. It has to have conversations with itself that it never really had before. Who are we? What do we want? Why can't you chuck your fucking granny off a bus?
Hey, that was self-defense.
And of course, what's wrong with having a national anthem by the Bay City Rollers?
It happens to be true. I only wanna be with you.
And then in the blink of an eye, barely under a decade since Holyrood had been established, the SNP wins in 2007 and runs the country as a teeny tiny minority administration. And First Minister Alex Salmond, big handsy himself, not guilty, cleared of all charges. I know. Are we ever going to get to the bottom of what the fuck happened with that particular conspiratorial clusterfuck? I don't recall. Anyway, he changes the Scottish Executive, as it was then known, to the Scottish Government. A small change, but a tactically genius move. So 2011 rolls in and Alex Salmond and the SNP, they do the impossible. They get a majority in a parliamentary voting system that was, rather cheekily, designed to stop that. It's like getting out of a trap in a Saw film. It's not supposed to happen. There's meant to be blood.
Do you want to play a game?
This is big. This is tectonic plates shifting, even if most people at the time only felt a distant rumble, thinking it meant they just had a dodgy curry the night before.
Megan, no! Look away! Oh!
Because with the 2011 win, Alex Salmond brought forward the notion of independence to the forefront of the national consciousness. Independence, that distant, romanticised ideal that conjured images of your geriatric uncle in full tartan dress, wielding a tinfoil claymore menacingly at passing English tourists on Pitlochry Main Street till $100 are left alive! Just my family then. Yet before you know it, independence is everywhere.
Coming out of the goddamn wall!
And Scotland has to have more conversations with itself, conversations it usually only had when it was utterly bloated at the end of somebody's 50th. I walk through Glencoe and cried like a bairn. If only we were freer English bastards! Are you drunk, Dad? On Scottish whiskey, son! Scottish whiskey! Sit down and I'll tell you how we're actually descendants of over the bridge! Yeah, in the space of 20 years, Scotland went from having no parliament to having a devolved one. From having no real political say beyond voting fodder for the Labour Party to actually having the potential to choose our own future. That is wild. That is fucking wild. That's the sort of radical transformation that happens in post-Soviet states, not a pathetic little dribbling backwater like Scotland. Am I saying that post-Soviet states are more attractive than Scotland? Yes, I am. Why do you think so many stag doos go to Eastern Europe? How dare you! How dare you say that Scotland is not phenomenal! You are not a true yes-er! Can you see some of the things we'll be touching on in part 2? The independence campaign kicks off slowly and pathetically, and the nation has to reassure itself that no, it hasn't collectively dropped acid, and a referendum on Scottish independence is actually happening.
I'm freaking out, man.
As soon as regular folk started getting involved, though, the place started to get a bit of a buzz about it. The pros threw off the shackles of the stage-managed Yes Scotland, where insufferable smug dickheads like current Green MSP Ross Greer did their level best to sabotage the entire fucking thing. Fucking well done, cunt. Ross Greer. He makes Chucky for the Rugrats seem like a viable candidate for public office.
But it might take years, even months of hard work. I don't have that much time, Angelica. I have to take my afternoon nap.
Anyway, street politics, town hall politics sweeps the nation, the public gets some Energizer batteries shoved up its backside, and Scotland batters into the political process like it has never done before. People were talking politics in the street. We're not meant to do that. We're meant to watch the Fitbit, get drunk, eat our chippies, get fat, or shoot up some fucking heroin. We're meant to leave politics to our middle-class betters and never cause a fuss for the important cunts down in London. And I know the unionist arguments. Blah, blah, blah. It was divisive. It was worse than the Holocaust. It turned father against brother, mother against son, Aunt Janice against Uncle Nicky. Blood in the streets and no movement in the sheets because she was out fucking leafing the cow! And on a more serious note, the most infamous and violent moment in Scottish political history took place during this time. Jim Murphy got egged. There are soldiers who fought on D-Day suffering less PTSD than the Scottish media did at that moment. It was a national tragedy. As heartbreaking for Scotland as it was for the world when Gandhi got fucking assassinated. This is proof of how vile the Nazi nationalist bastards truly are. God save the Queen. Have you ever heard such fucking dribbling shite? Fuckwits pretending that some sort of civil war was erupting because Betty McManus was doing the miners' welfare, saying that our British pension was shite and perhaps we could do better. Of course, this was a deliberate political tactic, acting like the very act of discussing your own fucking future in your own country was somehow detrimental to the well-being of the country. Spoiler, it fucking wasn't. You basically had all these unionist politicians and pundits denouncing democracy itself, which is a fantastic thing for a career politician, sucking at the public trough to do. Seventh dimension chess right there. Idiots. And instead of articulating a positive case for Scotland staying in the Union, what did we get? Project Fear. Talk about fucking petulance. The no side knew they didn't have an argument, so they preyed on the fact that Scottish people are basically fucking idiots that were slightly less intelligent than drunken toddlers. And it worked, at least in the short term. Oh aye, I'm sure the Tories have the best interests of the people of Scotland at heart. We're Margaret Thatcher's fucking testing ground. The parking lot for British nukes, for fuck's sake. We can't have them parked near any civilised places now, can we? But the damage was done. All the parties of the No campaign repeatedly shot themselves in the feet just to get the No vote.
Just a flesh wound.
They sacrificed whatever was left of their integrity to terrify Scotland's pensioners.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
It did not. While Scotland voted no, too much had been revealed in the campaign for things to go back to the way they were. Too many people were switched on to how utterly full of bias, lies and shite the impartial BBC was. BBC Scotland, long thought of as a sort of daycare centre for the intellectually challenged, became such a complete fucking laughingstock that it's a surprise it doesn't have its own fucking fringe show. Those who voted yes didn't go away. They were supposed to. That was the expected thing. Tail between the legs, shit in the carpet, hide under the bed. Yet they felt righteous fury, and it buoyed the SNP after the Indie Ref vote.
We'll never go away, we'll always be here, and the feeling will only grow.
No, even Mystic Meg saw that coming, which also lays to rest all this once-in-a-generation pish that seems to be the only argument that unionists seem to have left. You either have to be dumb as fuck or plain dumb as fuck to think that's a solid argument against Scots having another say in their future. Especially after all the lies and the bullshit, especially after Brexit, and especially as polling for support for independence has held steady at 50% in the 8 years since the vote. It hasn't really increased, but, well, we know where the blame for that lies. Salmon steps down and Sturgeon takes the helm after the no vote, and with the help of a recent influx of 100,000 members, the SNP utterly decimates Scottish Labour for their duplicitous behaviour during the IndieRef campaign, teaming up with the Tories to terrify old ladies. Hashtag so brave. The SNP sweeps the board in the 2015 UK general election, getting 56 out of 59 MPs elected. This is the body count of a slasher film. The SNP were acting like Michael Myers and slaughtering heavyweight, troughing political careerists like they were absolutely nothing.
Evil dies tonight! Evil dies tonight!
Highlights of this include Margaret Curran, Douglas Alexander, Jim Murphy, Ian Davison, Tom Harris and Anis Sarwar. A political moment like this should have sent shockwaves through the British establishment and fired the starting gun of a decade of political agitation, the likes of which had never been seen.
We got work to do.
This should have been as groundbreaking as that moment in Lost at the end of season 3 when you realised you were watching a flash forward, not a flash back.
We have to go back!
The SNP should have held Westminster's feet to the fire, steadily roasting the bastards until the skin started to come off and the British establishment realised, perhaps Scotland's a little bit too much of a hassle to coop. As your basic fucking tactics, mate. Read some fucking Sun Tzu, you pricks. But what happened? What became of this political tsunami? The SNP betrayed it all. They settled down comfortably into the expensive benches at the heart of the British establishment. The money came in, lots and lots of money. And since Scottish Labour had been gutted, the SNP became the utterly dominant force in Scottish politics and thus became a lodestone for careerists, drifters and lobbyists who would subsequently paralyse the absolute fuck out of it. Over the next 5 years, Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP hierarchy essentially acted like a fat elephant, sitting in the movement that had given them their political hegemony and legitimacy, squeezing the fucking life out of it.
I can't breathe!
Until it was nothing but a husk. Sturgeon, high in her own supply after snorting endless lines of her own PR, morphed into a narcissistic presidential wannabe, more in love with being the centre of attention on the global stage than actually working towards the goals of the party that she led. She became ensconced in the performative, woke PR bullshit to the detriment of all else, especially running the fucking country. So the democracy-loving SNP rode roughshod over their own democratic processes to ensure the loyal were rewarded and the freethinkers and dangerous bastards were cast out into the cold. Sturgeon and her husband Peter Murrow tightened the grip in the party and wielded it like a scythe, cutting down the movement that had built them up piece by piece until it was a meekly compliant shadow of its former self.
We are worms! Worthless worms!
And that's around the time the normies bailed, leaving nothing in the Yes movement but the Unicorn Shaggers, the Bruce cosplayers and the Tartan Stasi, the latter of which was currently eating the SNP alive from the inside by utilising America's greatest export aside from selling weapons to third world dictators, university identity politics.
First time ever anywhere.
And what a cancerous growth that turned out to be, eh? Scotland turned into a playground for the rainbow saltire version of the Spanish Inquisition, infecting every facet of institutional life from local government to creative Scotland.
If you will not join us willingly, we will be forced to use other means of persuasion.
Ensuring only those loyal to the dear leader, for Sturgeon was a ringleader of these cretins, were allowed to play the game. What brave foundations for a nation in waiting that was, eh? And so Sturgeon marched the remnants of the Yes movement up and down the hill, depending on whether she needed to get their votes to get the SNP over the next line at the next election. Or the next one. Or the one after that. Just one more push. Okay, another push. Another wee push. Is it any wonder disillusionment took hold? Keep pushing like that and you end up shitting out your own fucking intestines, for Christ's sake. Sturgeon and Murrow continued to dangle the carrot of the mythical IndieRef 2 like a gentrified witch in Hansel and Gretel, but without the happy ending. To ensure nothing more than the SNP power couple's continued dominance of the political landscape. The SNP, once thought of as a bit of an outlier, a bit rebellious, showed itself to be nothing but the new Scottish establishment. The new iteration of Scottish Labour's hubris. A party that's sole reason for existing now seemed to be to propagate its own existence. Power for power's sake. And so now, after all of this, we have arrived at the supposed finale. But much like the end of Game of Thrones, people have their doubts about the producer's ability to stick the landing.
And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
Fucking everybody. Sturgeon's plan for the next independence referendum turned out to be the same plan her and her loyalist idiots have spent the best part of 5 years decrying as tinfoil hat nonsense when anyone else raised it. Trust in Nicola, she has a plan. She's playing 7th dimension chess. Yet now that Sturgeon was saying the exact same plan, we were supposed to believe that this was the tactical genius the likes of which hadn't been seen since the days of fucking Hannibal, almost bringing the entire Roman Republic to its fucking knees. Indie Ref 2 is on, so we're led to believe. The game board is set.
The pieces are moving.
Now, in part 2, we meet the wide variety of players and explore what a shite part they'll have to play in their shite future. Like and subscribe before I have a fucking aneurysm.